How do you pick a business name that is right for you? That's the perfect business name, for perfect domain name. Hey, Chris Zuiker with Media Options, help companies acquire the raw version of the brand, brokers from the best domains on the planet. Check that out over at MediaOptions.com. Check out ChrisZuiker.com. Check out DNX.com. Check out ChrisZuiker.com. I do a daily podcast over there. I'm episode like 743 or something crazy. I've done it for like 3 years now. Anyways, this video today is inspired by an article that I read, and it was this article right here. It was how to choose a business name that's right for you. Now, it's interesting because this article was shared several times with me on LinkedIn, and people are like, "Hey, can you like this post?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "I don't like Forbes because I think some of the articles on Forbes really aren't in depth. They're more done for like SEO value. You know, you can." I shouldn't say I don't like Forbes completely. I mean, because I'm actually looking at possibly, joining one of their members where I can actually post stuff, okay? Because it does work for SEO. But most of the articles that I've seen, they don't get to the depth and the heart, okay? They're not real. It's more for like, it's just very bland for SEO. Now, in this case, I'm not trying to dog Neil at all. He did write an article, but I don't see this article really being of much value. I mean, when you scroll through it here, it's like determine the type of domain you want, the name you want, break it down, expose your brand's core. I agree with that. Brainstorm names, check. Check trademarks. Absolutely, you have to do that today. And then get outside opinions. Yeah, So, I mean, listen, in general, some good ideas, but it doesn't get to the heart, okay? It doesn't get to the heart of branding today. Now, listen, my thesis is this, okay? Your domain name equals your brand equity. And if you don't own your domain name, then listen, it impacts your brand equity, okay? Brand equity being this feeling, and it's more than a feeling because it really is a number at the end of the day, but it's like loyalty, it's trust, it's repeat customers, okay? The brand equity, okay? And if you don't own your domain, you don't own your brand. And I can prove that over and over again with the 7 dimensions to a domain name. Check out my other videos. So, okay, I mean, the logical next question is, okay, Chris, well, what are your key points here? Now, I'm not going to go in depth in this video. Maybe I'll do another video with more in-depth thoughts here, but I do have like 4 key points, okay? The first one is, I mean, if you're coming into any industry, is what's the competitive landscape like? Okay, now this is my view from having looked at a lot of domains. I have over 200,000 contact points in selling and trying to help people acquire the raw version of the domain name, outbound marketing of domain names. So I have come across a lot of people and a lot of companies. Now, one of the first things I do when we're brokering domain names, I make a list, okay? And it's like, okay, the top 50 companies in that industry that would be perfect for this domain name. If it's this case, like if it's a category defining domain name, okay? We're brokering crypto.org right now. Listen, what are the top companies out there? What companies are doing it right, what companies are doing it wrong. I mean, you can clearly see in this case, like who are the top and who's at the bottom, okay, as far as share position. Now, most industries are already kind of established. So, first thing is like, what's the competitive landscape for you in your industry? And how are they branding and marketing? And like, does the brand you want create trust? Now, I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit here, okay? Because I think the first step is that, it's interesting. Like, branding is a very personal thing, okay? I've worked with startups. I've worked with a lot of startups, a lot of people who are rebranding, and they can say, "Hey, Chris, here's what we're going for. Here's the general thought, the general, here's who we are. Can you give us some ideas?" And I might shoot them like 40 ideas over, and they may be like, "Nah, I'm not feeling any of those." Right? I mean, to me, there could be some of the best domains in the world, the best opportunities in the world, like quilt.com. I mean, you think about that one, it's secure, it's there's equity in there, right? It's like you're thinking, from the standpoint of it's your quilt, right? I mean, you may have had it for like generations, right? So it's trust. Okay, it's all these things that quilt implies, and they may say, not interested. One example is I was trying to help this company out. It's a startup in the medical space, and they asked for options, gave them all these options, and one of them was an animal. Now, listen, I never in a million years would have thought they'd be an animal, but they chose the animal, and it wasn't just any animal. It was a very unique animal, but that talked to them, okay? And so, I think the first step is that your brand really encapsulates your mission, your ethos, and your culture, like who you are, what you're trying to be, who you're trying to speak to your employees, your customers. And that's something that, unless you're really integrated with that company, that's something that needs to come from the company, okay? Ideas, options, then from there you can go out. But the first thing I would do, once you know that, okay, once you have the essence as far as what you want, then what you want to look at is what's the competitive landscape. Draw it out, write it out. What are my competitors doing? One of the kind of a key insight here is that most companies, listen, you look like the perpetual startup. Okay, you're like, no, listen, Chris, I got the funding, we've got millions of dollars, and we're going to go after like the top 3 share position in the first couple of years and overtake the first guy in the next 5 years. That's our plan. And I'm like, listen, I get it, but I mean, your domain makes you looks like a startup. You'll forever be the startup. You'll never. That's not even a word, but you won't be able to have the opportunity to rise up into that position of a leader, okay? Because your domain name looks like a startup. And so, as people are coming and they're coming new to the industry, and listen, even though there's Google and even though your position, I mean, people look at, even though maybe like direct response marketing, depending upon the product you have, they're going to look at the top maybe 5 companies, and they're going to evaluate you in these top 5 companies and say, well, hey, how does this company look? How do I perceive them versus this other company? Okay, and that's what we call, it's leadership, it's industry positioning. So the 7 dimensions, you have global positioning, which actually I'm going to touch on right now. So competitive landscape is critical because you don't want your domain. I mean, it has to stand out, it has to be different, but at the same point, it has to still trust and it has to have the ability to scale as you take share. Okay. Now the next one, which is very important, is I'm going to give you 3 here. Okay, is the .com available? Now, I say this, it's very easy to say, well, Chris, you're a broker, you're in the domain space. Of course you're going to say that. Listen, like the reason I say this is that how much noise is there around this brand that you want to create? There's different extensions to each brand. Okay, there's the .co, there's the .ai, there's the .io, there's the .net, there's the .org, there's the .tech, there's the there's like 1,000 different new TLDs you can choose, okay? You could, the .ca, the .cn, the list goes on and on and on. But what I mean by this is that how much noise is out there. Okay, so for instance, let's say you want to create a new brand on Carrot. Well, do you ever think you're going to be able to like break free and you own the leadership position for that? Well, of course not, right? Carrot.com, they already own that. There's like 10 other companies out there. Same thing with Hive. The same thing with Kraken. Like, let's say you're like, okay, listen, Chris, like I just, Kraken, we're going to start this new business and it's going to be in, let's say it's like a fitness space. Okay. It's going to be the new fitness thing. It's going to be the Kraken, whatever. I would tell you, listen, you have no chance of ever owning the leadership position because there's Kraken.com. They've already solidified that. They're already, they already own the top like 3 pages of search. In fact, Kraken Rum, the example I use over and over again, I mean, they put maybe $50 to $70 million in marketing, and guess what? They're on the 2nd page, the 3rd page, the 1st page, and like they kind of go back and forth here, but they don't dominate it. I mean, Kraken.com dominates the what I call the global positioning, and so that's why. I mean, yes, it's important to own the .com from one standpoint because it's the ability to scale, but it's also important because it's your ability to own the leadership position. Now, the third point here would be like choosing your domain name or your brand. Okay, it's interchangeable for me because your brand is your domain name, and I can prove that over and over again by some of the best marketers in the world and some of the best stores in the world. But is that if the .com is not available, and let's say there is like 7 or 8 different companies out there that call themselves some kind of derivative. It's a my, it's a try, it's a get, it's an LLC, it's a .io, .ai. Well, guess what? This could be a phenomenal opportunity for you to come in, buy that domain, and then leverage the momentum in the marketplace. Okay, this is huge. This is huge, okay? And this is why I say over and over again, like not owning the .com is one of the biggest risks that you have and your brand has to scaling because you're building up and you're putting advertising and marketing behind this, and someone can come in and they can capture that momentum that you've already built up that's out there. They can capture, the traffic that's just kind of like this halo effect over the .com. And I mean, truly, they can take the wind out of your sails. So I mean, there's a great opportunity in this case to own that leadership position with the .com, to own the momentum that's behind maybe a keyword that's out there in the marketplace. There's just a goodwill that is it's already Okay, so when I look at the value of a domain name, I break it down into 3 different buckets. It's raw equity, brand equity, and perceived equity. So It's kind of this raw equity, okay? This raw equity, this brand equity, this combination here, it brings a lot of value to that .com for your brand. So anyways, just some thoughts for you on like how do you choose the right brand for your company. I mean, I think that's very personal. I think that, you got to look at the competition. You got to, look at, if you're going to put and make this like a brandable, which is just some made up word, I get it. I mean, you can get it for maybe $10. You can get it for maybe $5,000, right? And these different sites, but how much money you have to put into that to make it an actual brand. Know your competition. Know how that's gonna position you. We call that the second dimension. It's called leadership positioning in your industry. You have to know the global positioning. That's how many other brands are out there, and you have to have the opportunity to scale. Okay, and that's the kind of that ability to leverage the growth that's out there, the momentum that's out there. Does your brand allow you to scale beyond where you're at today? That's super important. Okay, and in reality, listen, the 7 dimensions are really what you should use for your for how to pick the best brand, okay? And those 7 dimensions are it's global positioning, industry positioning, branding, marketing, SEO, the ability to scale, email security, and I think that's 7. Okay, that's it. A little bit long here, but if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and share it up. Put some comments below. I'm going to start trying to answer those questions. Go on over to chriszuiker.com, check out my podcast. I do a lot more information. I do it daily, so a little bit easier in these videos, but check that out and share this up. You just got done listening to another episode of .com Strategies. Check us out online at chriszuiker.com and at mediaoptions.com.